Hi, Jeff Leemeister, Executive Director of the AACA Museum. We're about to leave the 1920s to see the museum, but before we do, I wanted to share one more thing with you. The museum has interactive throughout our different decade scenes, and one of the neat ones here in the 20s showcases different aspects of that period. The 1920s were a time when cars became affordable, they became more reliable, and they became more of a household item for people across the country. And one thing that happened for us in our collection, we have a 1929 Model A Ford that was donated by its original owner. He bought it when he was 17 years old. His name was Frank Hartmaier. He had a paper route. He was able to take out a loan and with assistance buy a Model A Ford that he kept until it was donated to the museum in the early 2000s upon his death. So we're happy to have cars like that here in the museum that tell wonderful stories, because cars are all about people and connections, and there's nothing more striking, I think, than to own a car for almost your entire life. So here's a little bit about Frank and his Model A Ford.
In 1991, Frank appeared on a television program from California entitled To Tell the Truth.
Alex, today we have Hartmaier competing with delegates. Hello, how are you? I'm well, thank you. Here's a chance for you to put one-on-one and to get some money at the same time. I want to introduce you anyway, two stories to tell. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Frank Hartmaier. Frank is going to tell two stories, only one of which is the truth. These are prophecy stories will inspire hundreds of dollars. Frank, what's your first story, please? You've heard of Mr. Todd. I'm Mr. Smith. All right, sounds good to me. That may or may not be the truth, Larry Bill. Let's look at Frank's second story. In 1929, I put a Model A Ford. After 63 years, I'm still driving the same car.
Frank actually drove the car almost 80 years. Frank died January 2009. Had he lived until, I think it was May of 2009, he would have owned the car for 80 years. And he drove the car right up until, I would say, a few months before he passed away. It was about 1944. His car had over 400,000 miles on it. The speedometer broke about that time, and he didn't get it fixed immediately. He did get it fixed a little bit later, so there are some miles in there that are uncertain. But we estimate that his car has over 600,000 miles on it. The engine that's in the car presently is the original engine. It was rebuilt about 4 times during the years that Frank drove the car. So I think he restored it around the early 1970s, and that's when he started going to car shows with it. He decided he was going to the Model A Ford Restorers Club meet in Cincinnati, Ohio. Well, Frank was born in 1911. So by 2005, Frank was approximately, 94 years old. On his way home from Cincinnati, he was traveling across the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And he was somewhere east of Carlisle, and it was getting starting to get dark, and it was pouring down rain. And Frank, would travel along about 45 or so miles an hour. Well, pretty soon he saw flashing lights behind him and realized it was a state trooper behind him. So Frank pulls off. The state trooper comes up, and Frank says to him, "What was I doing wrong? I know I wasn't speeding." The state trooper said, "Well, you didn't do anything wrong." He said, I was concerned for your safety. You're driving in this pouring down rain, and it was getting dark. He said, "I was afraid a tractor and trailer would run over top of you." Because the Model A Ford only had one taillight at that time, and it wasn't very bright. So I can understand where a truck or anybody else for that matter in the rain could have run into the back of Frank. So the state trooper said, asked Frank, he said, how far are you traveling on the turnpike? And Frank said, to Morgantown, Pennsylvania. And the state trooper said, well, he said, I'll follow you to Morgantown to make sure that, nobody runs over you, which he did. The state trooper followed Frank, and Frank got off at Morgantown, and then the state trooper, of course, stayed on the turnpike, and that was the end of that story.